Okay, I'd like to call the April 15th meeting of the school committee, Auburn School Committee, to order. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll now move to introductions, starting to my right.
Dan Poisson, Ward 5.
Lydia Chapman, Ward 4.
Misty Edgecombe, Ward 2.
Corin McGuigan, Ward 1.
Sue Doris, Superintendent.
Pat Gaudier, Ward 3.
Jay Rich, at large.
Adam Platt, City Council Representative.
Calvin Vincent, Student Representative.
Amanda Kuchar, Business Manager.
Scott Anier, Assistant Superintendent.
Okie dokie. And then I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes the approval of the agenda, the approval of the minutes from April 1st, the superintendent's recommended certificated contract renewals pending appropriate certification and/or licenses.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Motion, sorry. Are there any questions? All those in favor? Motion passes. Okie dokie. We do not have any recognitions this evening, and I don't see anyone for public comment, so we will move on. Now we'll move to our presentation, which is the budget update. I will turn that over to Dr. Doris.
Thank you very much. Tonight, we will have further budget discussion and deliberation. There are a couple memos that were sent out. One was initially sent out with the agenda last Friday, and then there was an additional memo sent today with an update. So I'm going to start by sharing the first memo that was sent out with an update. This first memo was addressing the City Council's request for us to reduce our overall FY27 school budget by $500,000. And the council had asked that we find a way to reduce our budget, but also discuss what impact a reduction, the different reductions would be for us. So I'd like to go over what we initially came up with for budget reductions and what those impacts would be, and then we'll talk about the updated memo that was sent out today, which has information about it, information about some additional revenue that we're receiving. So in response to the council's request to reduce our budget by $500,000, the first adjustment was the health insurance. The final health insurance rate came in at 7%, and we budgeted 12%. So this resulted in a savings of $331,490. So if we can apply this savings to reduce the city's contribution, this helps lessen the burden on taxpayers while responding to current municipal fiscal pressures. This adjustment does not reduce services or staffing, but it does affect the district's financial position. The original plan, as outlined in my budget message, was to use these savings to reduce reliance on the fund balance and strengthen long-term fiscal stability. Applying the savings to reduce the city's contribution provides immediate taxpayer relief, but maintains reliance on fund balance and may increase pressure on future budgets as fiscal challenges continue. The next adjustment that was recommended was the summer school funding adjustment. A portion of our summer school program will be supported through grant funding, allowing for a reduction of $43,510 in the general fund while maintaining our planned services. This adjustment does not impact our summer programming. However, grant funding is subject to availability, and this does not represent a long-term solution. So if we take it out of the general fund this year and we're using grant funds to cover the cost of our summer programming, next year, if grant funds do not come through, we do not have funds for summer school program in our budget, we would have to add them back in. The next two adjustments had to do with staffing. The first was an elementary teacher position funding adjustment. We would support one elementary teacher position with grant funds in the coming school year rather than the general fund, and this would be a savings of $63,000. And like the summer funding, this approach maintains staffing and class size support for the coming school year, but because this is a one-year grant-funded position, it creates a gap the following year in FY28. So without an ongoing funding source, the position would be eliminated next year. And then the last reduction is a multilingual learner teacher reduction, eliminating a currently unfilled MLL teacher position would result in a savings of $62,000. The enrollment for MLL has stabilized with fewer newcomer students while the district continues to see MLL families relocating to Auburn. Student needs have been met with existing staff this year, but the impact would really be down the road and also current in terms of this limits our ability to expand or redesign MLL programming, and it also delays planned program development at Sherwood Heights and reduces the flexibility to respond to future changes in enrollment and student needs. So these were the 4 original reductions that were planned. And in the meantime, we received some good news when the governor's supplemental budget passed. There was an allocation of $8 million in additional funding to support economically disadvantaged students across the state. And the Auburn School Department is expected to receive approximately $225,000 in additional revenue from this allocation. So knowing that and coming into tonight, we now have a new proposal to get to the $500,000. In light of the new information, I would not recommend cutting the 2 teacher positions, and instead we would apply the additional state revenue as general fund revenue to meet the remaining reduction target. So the revised calculation toward the $500,000 would be to use the health insurance savings, which is $331,490, to reduce the summer school, take that out of the general fund, that's $43,510. And then we would use the new state revenue, so we would put the $125,000 in place of the proposed staffing reductions, and that also gives us $100,000 to apply to the fund balance. So we would put $100,000 back into the fund balance. So this maintains the $500,000 reduction target while avoiding proposed staffing reductions and reducing pressure on the fund balance. So that is the current proposal.
Okay.
And I will turn it over to you for comments and further discussion and questions.
Absolutely. I did receive some comments from Pam Albert, who couldn't be here tonight. So I would like to read those, and then we can go into our discussions, okay? It says, I thank Dr. Doris and her team for their hard work this budget season and for working closely with the city manager to put forth a budget that meets both the school district's needs while also working to meet the recommended reductions requested by the city council. Based on Dr. Doris's revised budget recommendations, per her updated budget memorandum she provided earlier this afternoon that accounts for the additional funding through our state subsidy allocation, I support her recommendation to apply the savings from our estimated health insurance costs to the local share for tax relief to the Auburn taxpayer. I also support applying the additional savings to reduce the use of the fund balance as continued reliance on it is a concern. While maintaining the 2 teaching positions, which I view as necessary. I was not in favor of eliminating either of these classroom positions, as it would have had detrimental effect on our staff and students alike and put additional strains on next year's budgets. Overall, I am in favor of the updated recommendations that maintain the 2 teaching positions while meeting the $500,000 budget reduction request from the City Council. Okay, and now we can go into some discussions. Does anybody have any questions for Dr. Doris about the updated memo? Pat?
I don't have any questions, but I agree with Pam, especially about the MLL position that really, really rocked my boat here. So I think we need to thank the state for coming in at the last minute, and I will support this budget.
I did have, oh, you go on. No? Oh, I just had some questions and for Adam about the city council's responsibility with this, not with this, but I know that this is a very hard budget season. What is the, how do I word this? The percentage that we've been asked from the city council to reduce our budget, is it kind of in line with what the city council's doing? Like with the, it's something that you've asked about
Yeah,
before.
it's-
Like,
I
are
brought
we,
that
are
point
we
up.
balanced?
Yeah, down to the percentage point as a percentage of whatever it is we're measuring, operational budget. No, I can't say it's down to the percentage
Yeah,
point.
right.
But what I can say is, so my reaction to this presentation is thank you. I think, we've always searched for creative ways to come up with these requests from the city to find these cuts. I think, thank God the state has come in with this new information and we can rely on this revenue. Obviously, we might be back in this position. This is a Band-Aid solution to a more long-term issue that we're going to be dealing with. But I appreciate it, and I reflexively on the city side, so to answer your question, yes, there have been cuts. I believe currently it's to the tune of 1.2 million.
Okay.
So there are very real cuts on the city side. I think they've got a lot of departments to change things around and pull from,
Right.
but I can say there are going to be alterations to hours and to there's staffing considerations on the city side that are being affected by these budget cuts. So it's not we were very clear. We didn't want to say if the city's cutting 500, the school needs to cut 500.
Right.
You can't compare apples to apples. They're completely different. The school has a different revenue model than the city does, so we're aware of that. So without saying that we are down to the percentage point
Yes.
equal, I can say that the city is feeling it. I believe Phil has cut 1.2 already from his proposed budget.
Okay.
And so we felt that 500 was a fair number to ask. I think the real victim here is the fund balance. I
Yes.
think we see what this does to the fund balance and what that means for the next year or two. But these are the kind of cards we've been dealt this
Yep.
year. I think given the city council's request, this is a very responsible answer to that. I'm happy to see that we're not cutting headcount, we're not affecting students in any direct way. So I also support what we've seen today, proposal we've seen today.
Any,
I think, Adam, you said the same thing. It was a Band-Aid. And I want to thank Dr. Doris and your whole team. You guys did such a great job, even at the first one. Even with the first memorandum and the first revisions, it was great. It was pushing things off to the next time, but that was what needed to be done. So again, the state for coming in at the 11th hour, I was so relieved that this got, it was much better. But I think the illusion that we're going to have an easy budget system, budget anytime soon is just that. I think it's going to be tough every single year. So
Yeah.
good job.
Jay?
Thank you. I want to echo what Pat said and thank the legislator for coming in. It was a bipartisan effort, and it just kind of shows what we can do when we put the issues first. And we're investing in our education, which is our kids. I am glad about the MLL position staying. High caseloads for our teachers is really hard when you're trying to reach every single kid and make sure that all of their needs are met. Because as an MLL teacher, usually you're not just teaching the kid, you're helping them acclimate to a new country or a new school system or learn how to go to the cafeteria, things like that. So I think they are a very valuable part of our district, and I think that keeping them in there is important. And I didn't want to create the hole with the elementary teacher position either, so I was happy to hear that. I do worry about the grant funding for summer school and it creating a hole. The summer slide is real. And having opportunities for our kiddos to have access to books, technology, friends out during the summer, I think is important. So if we're able to kind of finagle that in and then still put roughly, 66-ish back in the fund balance, I would be in favor of that. But I like both options, and thank you for working hard on this budget. I know it's not easy for anybody, so thank you.
Yeah. And I echo what everybody says. I was not in support of the previous memo. I was in support of parts of, but not anything that would affect our teachers and in positions. But with that being said, we have a new memo. I was very excited to see that today. I was wondering if we could do a straw poll just to see where everybody is with that, because our next meeting on the 29th, I believe, we'll be voting on the budget. We wanted to give time for everybody to kind of settle into the new numbers and to see where we are. So, oh yeah.
So on the, how long have the teachers been vacant? Those,
The first position is not vacant currently. We currently have someone in that position, so we would shift the funding and move that to class size reduction, and the following year, we would eliminate that. So the second position, the MLL teacher position, that's been vacant for 2 years currently.
Yeah.
would it make sense to keep that one vacant and bring in the summer school? Or is that, it's been empty for 2 years, I mean, are you gonna be able to fill it?
I agree with that, but I also wonder what we could do in like contract negotiations to make it more appealing to have that position. I see value in it, but I also see what you're saying too, Dan.
Yeah. So, okay. Any other discussion?
So your suggestion was put summer school back in and take the MLL teacher out? Was that what you?
That's what I would,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I would say. I mean, it's been vacant for 2 years, so are you really gonna be able to fill it? Yeah.
Oh, my how badly do we need the position? I know they were, coming out the doors at Park Avenue, and they really need that. My friend is sitting up there shaking her head, so I'm concerned if we cut it and then we do get the numbers and need to expand, we're going to be in trouble. It's 50-50 for me on this one.
Yeah, I think, if we move to reduce the MLL teacher position, the impact is that if there are any changes down the road, we don't have that position, so we can't support those students if we reduce that now. If we are still unable to fill the position moving into next year, then we're not filling the position. Money from that position, if it's unfilled, will end up in our fund balance.
Yeah, I don't support making that whole, because it's harder to fill it back in. And we are seeing some growth, especially at Park. I'd like to see our MLL program reach all of, to expand. And I can't support getting rid of a position. We've already, over the last, 4 years or so, 39 positions, and I just can't do another one. Okay. But, so I'm going to do a quick straw poll for the updated budget memorandum, if you are in support of that. So, yeah, okay. All right.
All right, I just want to mention that we'll be sharing the updated budget proposal on April 21st with the City Council at the workshop at 5:30. And then the school committee will be voting on the budget on April 29th. This is a special meeting, and the budget vote will be the only item on the agenda. So our next meeting will be Wednesday, April 29th.
And just as a note, the 21st is a Tuesday,
Yes.
Yes.
because Monday is Patriots Day.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. And I didn't, during that straw poll, I didn't say all those opposed. And were you, your arm didn't go up, so I was just making, okay. No, I just wanted to make sure that everybody's accounted for. Okay. Going on to the school committee student representatives report.
Yeah, short report tonight. Today at Little, we had the culture show, which was very cool. Definitely more brave than I am, so that was very cool. Tomorrow is the first day, kicks off the spring sports season. So I believe almost every sport is playing tomorrow in like the first regular season game. And earlier this week was the first time the softball team got to use the new field at Every Little. So I thought that was pretty cool.
It is.
Yeah, that
Oh,
was
you
cool.
do? You'll have to see it.
Yeah, I do.
I want to see it.
Looking forward into May 4th through 8th is National Teachers Appreciation Week. So I know kids at Edward Little, we have stuff planned already, but that's pretty cool. And then we have 2 school days for Maple Break, so looking forward to that.
Well, that's awesome.
That's it for me.
I also want to give Calvin a shout out. Just recently, he received the MPA. He went to an MPA luncheon for the Principal's Award for Edward Little High School. He also received a $1,000 scholarship from them, one of 10 of the athletes that were there. So congratulations, Calvin. You do us proud. Okay. Superintendent's report?
I have no further items tonight.
Okie dokie. School, I don't have one. And city council update. Anything coming?
Other than just to echo Dr. Doris's timeline of what's going on, these next few meetings are when the votes all kind of occur in succession between the school approving its budget all the way to the city approving its budget, nearly 6 weeks after, I guess, roughly. But yeah, we've talked about it a little. I actually wasn't at the city workshop on Monday, but just so everyone knows where the city budget is at, I've mentioned this once or twice before, but it basically started with the manager's proposed budget, which was no new services, no new head count, obviously lots of increased debt service from the new public safety building, and that had come in. Initial estimates was an increase to the tax levy of almost 14%, 13 point something percent. We're down in the workshop. What was presented to us was a tax levy, including this $500,000 reduction from the school, which would bring a tax levy increase as it stands today, roughly about 9.7%. So that's about 4 percentage points lower than the original. Represents about $2.5 million in cuts citywide. So again, to answer that original question, I know that in previous budget cycles, we've wanted to make sure that we're not getting picked on as a school department. We're not asking to do more than our counterparts. And I can say with a straight face that it is the case this year that it's being shared, I think, in a fair way.
Okay.
So I think that's worth being said. But that's where the budget is right now. There's one added benefit that we don't really speak to yet, and that's increase in the tax base. So if there's an increase to the tax base, that's an increase in property taxes, and that can drive down the relative increase in percentage of the tax levy. So we won't know that till June. I think June or July is when the assessors will come out with that information, but that's where we are today. If anyone has any questions, it's a high tax levy increase. I'm sure we'll be hearing about it from the public. This was a tough one to avoid with a $45 million fire and police building that was voted on by the public. So that's where we stand, but happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Adam? Okay. Now we'll go on to committee reports. The Standing Committee, Finance Subcommittee, we have agenda and minutes linked. We'll be going over what's in the agenda later on, so if that's okay with everybody, okay. Policy Subcommittee, nothing there. Curriculum Subcommittee, I can just speak to it a little bit. We met with Carol Chilani, who is the lead interventionist,
Lead literacy coach for the district.
I'm like, there's her title. So what they're doing right now, the Literacy Curriculum Committee was formed in October, and they're going to evaluate our literature or ELA program. And it's I love the schedule that Dr. Doris has put together. This is the first time, like when I was previously on the board, she had introduced a 5-year cycle on reviewing our curriculum, and to see it now, and we started with the literacy, and now we're in the second, we're starting our second review cycle, and to see that, and to see the involvement, to see, hear from the administration and the teachers, and to see the gains. So I'm liking that everybody's voice is being heard. So that's what I got for curriculum. And now, gotta go back. And no old business as I see. In new business, I would like to entertain a motion to amend action step 3 from AMS Advisory Committee recommendations to reduce the bond amount to $9.2 million.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Could you give us a little?
Ms. Couture is going to give us an overview of why we think this is a good idea.
Well, I think it began with the concern from the city council about the first year's payback on the $11.2 million bond, as we had that concern as well. That is the 1 year where we wouldn't be able to do any consolidating of our schools because the middle school would still be under construction. Sixth grade would not have transitioned to middle school yet. Looking at some legislation that's recently passed, we now have the ability to apply for the school revolving renovation fund for more than $2 million. And if you remember the presentation on the middle school project, $6.2 million of that was capital improvement. And we've identified about, not quite, $4.5 million in items that would fall under the high priority for that fund. And the way it works is if we were awarded $4.5 million through the revolving renovation fund, Auburn specifically would only have to pay back $1.5 million. So that shows a $3 million savings on a possible bond if we were able to get that loan. So you can guarantee you will see that application come through next fall, as well as if we don't receive those funds, we do have the opportunity to request any additional funds needed to complete the middle school project in next year's budget cycle.
Any questions for Amanda?
So, put your genie hat on and tell me, what are the chances of our getting, you said more than the 2 million, you're talking about
So the maximum, as far as I recall, is $8 million now. We identified, what we really looked for when we identified the 4.5 million I'm referencing is there are multiple priority categories listed by the Department of Education, and we only looked at priority 1. And the number of items in our already prepared plan that hit priority 1 total over $4 million.
Okay.
Good, thank you.
Okay. That it? All right, all those.
Adams.
Okay.
Quick comment. Thanks. I think this is, I said this in the finance meeting, I think this is a really creative way to solve the issue of that funding gap in year 1 where we're going to have debt service, but we won't necessarily know what our savings are at that point. So I think this is clever. What I will say is I'd be, and I guess I'm speaking to everyone on the board, I'd be wary of looking at this revolving loan and thinking this thing is a done deal and this is exactly how this is going to play out. That's the best case scenario. That's wonderful. Keep in mind, we've already approved an $11 million amount. So this is really just, we're just decreasing that amount. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, in my mind, this is a vote to bond $9 million and then bond $2 million. Okay? If there's a better case scenario, great. But we need to be prepared for that, because if we don't get this loan, then we're going to have to bond $9 million and then $2 million, and we're still on the hook for that debt service. So I just want to say that I think we'd be a little naive to assume that we're going to get anything. Doesn't change. I still support this, because to me it's a smarter way to bond the money. It changes the debt service in a way that makes it more manageable. But yeah, I just felt the need to say that.
If you don't mind, I'd like to just follow up on that.
Yes.
The reason why I'm saying we can apply for $4+ million worth of capital improvement project, the reason why we are sticking with a $2 million decrease is exactly what Mr. Platts was describing, is we can't guarantee that we will receive that funding, but at the same time, we feel as though in the past decade, we have been approved for $1 to $2 million bonds on an annual basis through the city, so through our budget.
Okay. All those in favor to amend action step 3 from the AMS Advisory Committee recommendations to reduce the bond amount to $9.2 million, All those in favor? Okay. And motion passes. I will now entertain a motion to establish a Facilities Capital Reserve Fund for major repairs, replacements, and long-term capital improvements to buildings and physical infrastructures. Do I have a?
So moved.
Seconded?
Okay, any discussion? Yes.
Is it the same fund that we've been putting in? No, the other one's for the high school, right? This is for general?
Yep,
Okay.
correct.
And why wouldn't it be in the CIP account budget?
It really is to be able to address those immediate needs as they come. The boiler, you know, a leaky roof, just having the reserve account set up versus having to go through the budget process to more quickly have the avenue of funds to be able to pay for things. And it's very much like, you know, a catastrophic event that takes place during a school year that we wouldn't be able to wait for the budget cycle to catch.
Okay.
That's the first payment in there? That'd be the first, yeah.
Okay, right now we're,
I do have a quick question. What were you doing up until now, until the creation of this? Say you had a disaster, what would have happened until?
We've brought a few times this year the request to use excess fund balance in order to pay for, I think we're up to about $240,000 in items that have occurred just this year. So it really, it's a way of assigning our fund balance specifically to those needs rather than keeping it as an excess.
And I'm really supportive of this. I think that we see what happens when things get pushed off. I think we end up being reactive instead of proactive, and I think this is just a really good way to be proactive.
absolutely.
And if I could make a comment about it, I think one way to think about this is really not doing anything. You know, when something breaks, we spend money to fix it, right? This is really a budgetary measure to move the money from one bucket into a bucket that makes more sense and allows for Amanda to do her job with more ease. But really, at the end of the day, if something breaks, we're using fund balance or excess fund balance to pay for it. So we're not changing the expenditure of money. We're not accelerating how much we're spending. We're designating funds for this purpose, such that, as Scott just said, when something breaks, we're ready for it. We don't have to go through the bureaucratic process of the budget cycle. So I think when we get to the next vote, that's when we're actually talking about dollars putting into that fund. But as far as the creation of the fund,
We're making the bucket.
yeah, my understanding is the bucket's just
how I see
another
it.
bucket to put funds that we already have into. So.
Yep, that's how I see it. Okay, so all those in favor? Motion passes. Okay. I will now entertain a motion to transfer $150,000 from excess fund balance funds to the Facilities Capital Reserve Fund. Do I have a, what is the word? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you.
Seconded.
Oh, my brain. Okay. Could you speak to this a little bit more?
Maybe one of you
One
can
of you
speak
could.
to-
Sure, I think we were just trying to be as judicious as possible and kind of keep it in alignment with some of the other reserve accounts that we had. It's below some of the other accounts. We were just trying to create a number that made sense in light of really kind of costs of a boiler sort of scenario. But it is less than the others, and it gives the flexibility for the school committee to increase at any point in time. It was just really trying to establish a baseline.
Ms. Couture, could you explain the process, how this works in terms of getting the account established and when the money will
Yes.
go into the account?
Yes, so this second motion that you folks voted on actually is part of the referendum in June. So in order to establish a capital reserve fund, we have to have that approved as part of our school budget from voters. The $150,000 piece, that actually does match exactly to 2 out of the 3 of our capital reserve funds that we currently have. That's exactly what the school committee added to them. So those the first year, and then as we see our audit come out every year, we can analyze our fund balance and see if we want to add a little bit to that, as well as looking at what we've spent out of it as well, if we need to replenish those funds. Does that address it? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
And currently, we've spent 224 this year, is that, or something like that?
I
What
feel
was
like my number's off, but it's around 240 or
Okay.
250.
Yeah, I knew it was large.
I didn't bring that.
And so again, this doesn't, if we put 150 into this account, it doesn't change anything. We've already spent that money this year. We're likely going to spend a similar amount next year, so.
Anybody have any further discussion or questions? Okay. All those in favor of transferring $150,000 from excess fund balance funds to the Facilities Capital Reserve Fund? All those in favor? Motion passes. Okay. Upcoming meetings, we have, there's the policy, school committee, you can see them all listed there. Is there any future agenda items or requests for information that anybody might have? No? Okay. I would now, if there's no further business, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Yep. All those in favor? Motion passes. Have a wonderful evening.